Everybody, and welcome to my review for Kenneth Branagh's new film Murder on the Orient Express. If you haven't heard of this film already, it does feature a very large ensemble of actors, the largest ensemble of actors that I've really seen in a long time. Great actors and very famous actors, that is. Just to name a few, you have Johnny Depp, Josh Gad, Daisy Ridley, Judi Dench, Willem Dafoe, and I could just keep going on and on because this has a very talented cast of actors. But does the film really hold up? Now, this movie is directed by Kenneth Branagh, but it also stars Kenneth Branagh, and I really liked Kenneth Branagh in this movie. I really enjoy his character. He plays a detective in this movie, and he plays a very good balance of a very dramatic, serious role as well as a very comedic role. And I think he hits that kind of character and that kind of tone very perfectly in this movie, and that kind of tone in his acting also is parallel to the way that the balance of tone is present in the actual movie. The movie is really tonally consistent. I do like the flair of comedy in the film, and it comes out really well, fleshes out the drama more, makes it more interesting, makes it more entertaining. And I really enjoyed Kenneth Branagh's performance in this film as this kind of sort of intelligent detective who has a very quirky style. And I really enjoyed watching him perform that as a character, as an actor. And it was one of the biggest treats for this film is seeing him on the big screen playing his detective. Hercule Poirot is the name of the character, and that character really came to life with his acting. And even though I wouldn't say anything there is Academy or Oscar worthy, it was a very natural performance that came out from him, and he really played his character very well, and it was very enjoyable to see. So I really enjoyed his acting in this film. Now, there are a lot of other actors in this film as well. You have people like Josh Gad, Willem Dafoe, Daisy Ridley, Johnny Depp, all these actors, even Judi Dench is in this film, as I said earlier. But my personal favorite actress, and honestly character right after Kenneth Branagh's character, was the character slash actor of Daisy Ridley. I think she did a really good job in this film, and I haven't seen her work in anything other than Star Wars, honestly, and I don't know if she stars in much other than things than Star Wars, but she did a really good job in this film, and I think that she was one of the most interesting characters, and she really showed herself to be a very polished actor amongst like a very, very strong cast of actors and actresses. She showed that she is also a very strong actress, even in this really huge ensemble of actors and actresses. So I think that she was definitely my other most favorite character. She had a lot of expression on her face. You could see that she was interested in the role that she was doing, and it really brought me as an audience member into the movie more watching her act. And she was my second favorite performance in this entire ensemble cast after Kenneth Branagh. So I really enjoyed her performance in this film. Let's get a little bit into the actual film here and a little bit more about the pacing of the film, because tonally, as I said, it's a very consistent film. But as far as it comes to pacing, I feel that the movie kind of starts with a little bit of what I would call a head fake beginning, where you think that the movie's going to go at a very fast pace, but then it comes to a screeching halt and ultimately ends up at this very snail pace. And now, I don't think that the snail pace was necessarily a bad thing, and I do think that this is one of those movies that acts as a little bit of a slow burn, kind of enveloping you in that mystery, although some people did find this movie to be very boring. Now, I do think that there are some parts of this movie that do drag. Most of it's that kind of enveloping, slow burn kind of style. But the parts that do drag, I think, are partly because of the screenplay, which is trying to allot time to each one of these actors, and it kind of feels like it's jumping around to get every actor their due time in the film. It kind of That's one of the things that kind of drags this film down a couple times, as well as some of the dialogue, which isn't as snappy as I would have liked it to be. But for the most part, I think that what they did and achieved with this movie is actually something that I really enjoyed, and I hadn't seen in a very long time. It's kind of that old movie type of pacing. It's very slow paced. You kind of get to envelop yourself in the mystery as you're trying to figure out and piece out the clues. And I enjoyed the slower pace for this kind of a movie, because you as an audience member are kind of more involved as you're watching these interrogations occur. You're watching the faces of the actors, and they're doing a really good job playing out the nuances and subtleties of their characters. Even though each character isn't necessarily super fleshed out, you can kind of try and piece the mystery together, especially if you aren't familiar, as I was, with the mystery that is this film, because it's based off a book and it's based off of this old film. But I really enjoyed that kind of slow pace. I enjoyed the kind of slow burn take it took But there were some parts that dragged, and I think that the parts that people are finding the most boring are due to that kind of screenplay that's kind of jumping a little bit, and some of that dialogue which isn't quite as interesting as it could have been. Also, going back a little bit to the screenplay, is that one of my biggest issues is that some of the film sequences don't feel like they're put in exactly the right order to make the movie more interesting. I think that it could have been more interesting had they put certain sequences in a certain order. Um, but for the most part, as I said, that slow burn pace really worked for me. And in general, I liked that the way that this film was going. I liked the angle that they took with this slow pace and just bringing it to a screeching halt. But a lot of people are going to be disappointed, when the movie starts, it's going at this very fast pace, and then it really slows down. But I think that they did a pretty good job of bridging that first act with the middle part of the movie, as well as the climax. I thought that they really transitioned that well. So you kind of see it coming in the long run. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed what I saw in this film in terms of pacing. Ultimately, yeah, I think that this is a tested and tried story. You have Agatha Christie's original novel as well as the older film that came before this, so I know that audiences have accepted and enjoyed this story before, and I think Kenneth Branagh does a good job of bringing that story back to audiences on the big screen in an effective and simple way. And he does so with a slower pace, kind of an older film style that I enjoyed for the most part. I mean, there were, again, as I said earlier, sometimes the movie drags because of that screenplay and dialogue, but for the most part, you get all these little puzzle pieces, and then as an audience member, you get time to slowly piece those puzzle pieces together, and then the film comes to a climax by that time. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the film, is that pacing and the way that Kenneth Branagh brought it in an effective manner. Also, another thing I enjoyed about this film is its excellent production design. This is ultimately a bit of a period piece film, and I think that they did a good job of bringing that sense of time back onto the big screen with very ornate production design, and I enjoyed seeing that there's definitely that sense of visual spectacle in this film, where it's not necessarily all CGI, it's more practical production design work, sets and little props and things like that. A very kind of almost theater-esque kind of film production. Just one big qualm that I have with this movie is that the plot and the mystery surrounds something that I believe could have had a little bit more of an emotional and or even philosophical impact. I think that they kept it very simple with this film, but I feel that this is a story now that we've had simpler versions of before, and it could use out a little bit more of fleshing. So I think that this movie could have just fleshed that part out a little bit more to create a little bit more of an emotional and or even, as I said, philosophical aspect to it. But ultimately, it's a simple movie and it works. So I don't want it to try and go for more than it is able to. I don't know if Kenneth Branagh could actually implement that very well. So for what it is, it works. It does. And I think it's a simple, effective story. That again, I wish it could have gone the extra mile, but ultimately it worked for me and I enjoyed this film. I'm going to give it a B. I don't think it's anything extraordinary. I don't think it's anything terrible. I think that it was a very simple story told in a simple way, and I think Kenneth Branagh was ultimately successful in doing that. So yeah. So thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all those great things, and keep watching for more reviews.